freaked out, like immediately like perked up off the cat tree and like ran over, like thinking that I had opened the window to the balcony. It was so funny.
Was thinking there were birds for it to get to. Good morning,
Yeah.
everyone. Thanks for joining us. We see names starting to pop up here. We'll be getting started at the top of the hour. Marissa and I were just chatting, but welcome. We appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning for our webinar. Sit tight. We'll be getting started at 10. Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. People will still be able to filter in, but we'll be getting started soon. Hi, Michelle. Welcome from the library. Chat is disabled for this webinar. We like to make sure that all questions go in through our Q&A feature so that they can be included in the recording. Thanks for that question. All right, we've hit that 10 o'clock mark, so I'm going to get us rolling here. Welcome, and thank you for joining us this morning for our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar. I'm going to get us started, and we will be beginning our demo for Getting Started with Libby for the first part of our program. My name is Joe, and I'm here with my teammate Marissa, and we're both digital book specialists from Overdrive. Now, this morning, we will be taking you through a whole webinar of programming from getting started all the way into a deeper dive of some Libby tips and tricks. Before we roll into our getting started session, I have a few housekeeping items I like to cover. We are recording our sessions this morning, and you will receive this recording in an email tomorrow morning from Zoom. So you'll be able to either watch this video or download it to keep it permanently. And we do this and we provide this reminder because we recommend you watch the demo as Marissa goes through it and wait to try out the Libby app until after we wrap up this session, knowing that you'll be receiving that recording in case you need to see something again, but you can always just kind of take notes or go through and then wait to try the app after. You can ask Marissa and I questions at any time throughout the entire webinar by using that Q&A button in your Zoom meeting controls. Type out your question, keep the Q&A box open so you can see answers as they populate under the Answered tab. This is the only way you can reach us, as we do have chat and raise hand disabled. We do this so that all of the questions that are asked and answers we provide filter into one place so everyone can see them, and those are included in the recording. You also have the ability to ask questions anonymously if that makes you more comfortable. Wanted to point out, we will be connecting our iPads into the Zoom session this morning, and every once in a while when we do that, Zoom chops off part of the screen. Sometimes it cuts off the top or the bottom. If you can't see the full screen when we connect, I will be sending out, well, Marissa will when I connect, and then I'll send them out again, instructions for how you can change this ratio if you need to. And if for some reason you can't see those instructions when they come through, just pose it as a question and we'll put that answer in there as well. The last thing I want to mention on the housekeeping slide is we understand you've all got different schedules. You may be able to only be here for a little bit, and knowing that you can review the recording at any time after, you might hop off early. Whenever you hop off, if you leave or when we end the meeting, a survey will pop up in your browser. If you can take a minute or two and fill that out to let Marissa and I know how we are doing. It's just in regards to the webinar, more so than features of the Libby app. We love to take that info and grow and change the presentation as your needs fit. So just keep that in mind for us. All right, thank you for your patience as I get through all of that. Now, we split this up. I'm going to take you through the process of downloading the Libby app and getting signed in for the very first time. And then I'm going to hand it off to Marissa, where she will cover the basics for your everyday function and quality of life within the Libby app. I'm going to take a second here to connect my iPad. Marissa and I are both using iPads this morning, and the Libby app is available on Apple, Android, and in your browser by going to libbyapp.com. Now, you can download the Libby app on an iPhone or an iPad or a typical smartphone or Android tablet. That's where you can download it from. Or if you're using a computer and you kind of want to go between multiple devices, you can use Libby in an internet browser at libbyapp.com, but you won't download it to your computer. So the only difference you're going to see, regardless of the type of device you're on, is just where we go to download the app. Once we're in Libby itself, everything looks exactly the same. So I'm going to start us off here now that I'm connected. For my Apple users, we'll be going to our blue App Store icon. If you're on an Android device this morning, go to the Google Play Store. It's a multicolored play button or multicolored triangle. Basically, we just need to navigate to wherever we would typically go to download an app. From here, we're going to tap into our search box, and we're looking for Libby, so I'm going to type in Libby, and then just tap this search button. Because when we search for Libby, she's usually the first result that pops up. Second, if there's an ad, but no, you're looking for Libby by Overdrive. So we see that maroon app icon with Libby reading her book. Now you'll notice on my screen it says open. I already have Libby downloaded on my device. But if you are on an Apple device, it will say get. If you're on an Android, it will say install. So tap either get or install and follow the instructions on screen to let that app download before we can get signed in. Once again, Libby is completely free. So now I'm going to leave our app store and we're going to find that freshly downloaded Libby app. Same icon. And when we tap in for the first time, Libby has a few questions for us. So whether this is the very first time you're downloading Libby, or if it is a new time or a new device that you're adding Libby to, she'll have a few questions. So for the very first time, we'll ask, do you have a library card? I'll say yes. And now here's kind of two places I want to point out. So if you're going to set up Libby on multiple devices, I'm going to take you through the process of that first one completely. But if you are using another device later, I wanted to point out this button right here, copy from my other device. So if you're using Libby on your smartphone and a tablet and in a computer browser and on another tablet, you're going to want to be familiar with this button so you don't have to find your library and enter your card info a bunch of times. You'll just pick this option. But since this is more aligned with getting set up for the first time, we're going to use I'll search for a library. From here, we can search by the name of our library, the city we live in, or our zip code. I'm going to go with zip. There we go. We've got our Seekonk Public Library. Hopefully I said that correctly. Now, this is the name of my library, and we can see the address right here, but I want to take a second to talk about this name up top, Sales Library Network. Now, this is the name of your digital collection. So Marissa and I will mention these a lot, and especially for y'all in Massachusetts, this name is really important. So your single library right here is a part of this larger group of libraries that has created this digital collection. So you've got access to thousands of titles in the Sales Library Network, and it's connecting a lot of branches that belong to sales. So from here on out, we'll more likely be referring to the digital collection than your individual library. So this is the correct one. So I'm going to tap that option. And now we're kind of in our first layer here. We're starting to enter the library. Libby needs us to add our card. And then remember, going forward after we finish this step, Libby will remember all this info so we can dive right back into whatever we're reading or listening to. So I'm going to tap choose a location. And we are going to just pick Sales Library Patrons. That's where your card will be from, unless of course you are joining us from a college or one of the other options listed. You're most likely going to see that you're a patron. And now we need to enter our library card number. So it's usually under a barcode. enter the number only. No dashes or spaces, anything like that. And once that card number is entered, we'll tap on next. And then we'll need to enter our PIN. Now, if you don't know your PIN, your library manages your card info, so your card number and your PIN, just reach out to your friendly neighborhood librarians and they'll be able to help you with that. I've got that info entered, so now I'm going to tap on sign in. As long as I typed those in correctly, there we go. We can see that that screen refreshed and I have access to my library's complete collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. Now, this is typically where I'd hand things off to Marissa, but we're in Massachusetts today, so we've got a super fun feature we like to point out. So the state of Massachusetts has a really cool program that they offer. It is a reciprocal lending agreement, meaning your one library card from the Sales Library Network works in many libraries within the state. So instead of just having access to one library, you have access to a total of 8 libraries. Oh, and Michelle from the library just hopped in with some helpful advice. Your PIN is usually the last 4 digits of your phone number. All right, so instead of just having access to one library, you have access to a total of 8. So I'm going to show you how to add those additional libraries. This is mainly for the recording, so that way you can review this later. You might not want to do this right away, just kind of do it as you get a little more comfortable with Libby, but know that you can reference this. So Marissa is going to talk about all of these buttons in a minute, so I'm just giving you some spoilers here. We're going to come down and choose the Libby menu. And from here, we'll see your libraries and navigate down to add a library. Now, the easiest way to find all of the libraries that you have access to is to type in the name of your digital collection. Now, if you forget that, you can look at the logo at the top of your screen or the name on your library card, but it's also here since I just entered it in, Sales Library Network. So I'm going to come and tap in this search box and type in sales. And this should bring up, there we go, all 8 libraries in the state of Massachusetts. So we've got our main library here, and then 7 other digital collections that we have access to with our one sales card. So I'm just going to tap one of these at random. Let's go with clams, and we can dive in here. So we're seeing the similar thing to what we just did when we entered our primary card. We still have to enter a card to access clams. I'm going to choose, I'm visiting from another library. And then here we need to tap on Sales Library Network. And similar to before, since you have some shared collections with different universities, we're going to make sure we tap on Sales Library Patrons. And then you'll enter your card number again and your PIN. Now you'll need to follow these steps for a total of 7 additional times if you want to add all 8 libraries, but there's a huge benefit to that. If your library doesn't have a title that, say, Clams or Boston Public does have, you can switch over into that library and borrow it there. Or you can use this as a way to look between different libraries and see if there's a shorter wait list. Things like that. So there's a lot of benefits to it. And since your card is signed into those other libraries, your home library is still going to get that circulation notice as well. So that takes us through the download and sign in process, along with that extra feature of adding additional library cards in your state. I'm going to hand things off to Marissa here. As a reminder, she is taking us through the basics in this session, everything you need to know to get started, from browsing for titles, borrowing and placing holds, adjusting appearance settings in an ebook, and setting your notification preferences. Marissa is using a demo library from Overdrive, so you'll see a different logo, but the functionality is exactly the same. Marissa is all connected, so I'm going to hand it off to her. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone.
All right, thank you, Joe. And I see that we have had some people popping in late. You can direct all questions to the Q&A button within Zoom's meeting controls. So just be aware of that. And then I also want to mention that Zoom ratio just one more time before we dive in. So sometimes Zoom will cut off the bottom of my iPad screen here. If you cannot see the bottom navigation bar, so you should see a magnifying glass, a library card, the Libby icon, otherwise known as the Libby menu, the stack of books, and the clock. If you can't see that, then Joe is chatting out instructions here for you one more time on how to change that zoom ratio, because that navigation bar is pretty important to follow along. So go ahead and change that zoom ratio if you need to, so that you can follow along with me. So we are going to start this presentation down at the bottom in that navigation bar. We'll talk about all of these icons at some point in the presentation, but I'm going to start to the left of the Libby menu. So that Libby menu is in the very center of the navigation bar. Again, you can think of the Libby menu as your app settings. We're going to start directly to the left of that on the library card. This is the page that Libby is going to open first when you sign in. And your library card is where you're going to tap when you want to browse your library's digital collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. So the library card is where you go if you just want to browse around, like if you were to walk into the physical library and just kind of look at the shelves. You didn't know exactly what you were looking for. You just kind of wanted to see what you thought was interesting. So again, we're going to be browsing for titles. So up at the top of this page here, first I want to point out these filters. So this is where I really like to start out a lot of my browsing, because it's a nice, easy way to tap in and look at books that are just added into the library's digital collection or available now. This is going to be a filter that you can pop into if you want to look for books that don't have any waiting lists. And then, of course, subjects, one of my favorite ways, if you want to specifically look for a mystery title or a historical fiction title, you can tap subjects here and look by genre. So those filters at the top, a really nice, easy way to get started browsing. As we scroll down this page, that's when you're going to see catalog guides. Now, these differ from library to library. So yours are going to actually look a little bit different than mine will. One that you have that I'm quite jealous of is a magazine's catalog guide. So a nice, easy way to jump into just a magazine section and look for a magazine that you would like to borrow. So again, these are going to vary from library to library, but just a nice way that the library is categorizing specific content so that you can find it easier. Now, as we make our way farther down the list, that's when down the page rather, that's when you'll start to see curated collections that your library puts together for you. Now, these are something that are going to change from time to time. So think of these like if you were to walk into the physical library during the summer and the library is displaying some beach reads on an end cap, maybe in the winter, some cozy mysteries or some holiday recipe books. That is what this is, just in the digital format. So again, it's going to change all the time. The library always wants to show you something fresh and new so that you can read something fresh and new. So I'm going to come back down to the navigation bar again, because I want to emphasize that library card is where you're going to browse the library's collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. So you don't know specifically what you're looking for, but you want to see what all is available. When you do know exactly what you're looking for, that's when you're going to tap on the magnifying glass instead. So that magnifying glass is the very first icon in the navigation bar. I'm going to go ahead and tap on that. This is where we can type in a specific title or author. You could choose a magazine name or a series name as well. Let's go ahead and search for the book Beach Read. Now, after you type in your keyword that you want to use, You can choose any of these search suggestions if you would like. I always like to just tap on the search button that's inside of my device's keyboard. That way it's capturing every single result. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So you can see I have 347 books and 42 audiobooks populating in this search, but the book I was actually searching for is showing up at the top here. So as we're in this search, I do want to point out a few different things. The first is going to be how you can visually tell the difference between an ebook and an audiobook. So you have to choose which format you would like to borrow books in before you borrow them. They can't be changed after. So I want to show you how you can tell which books are audiobooks and which are ebooks. Audiobooks are going to have a square jacket cover. Right underneath their jacket cover, you'll always see a headphone icon, as well as the duration of the audiobook. So there are 3 visual indicators there: the duration, the headphones, and then that square jacket cover. Ebooks, on the other hand, have a rectangular jacket cover. So you can see it is not a square, it's a rectangle, and there aren't any icons or the duration underneath as well. So just keep that in mind when you're searching for books so that you're not borrowing the format that you're not interested in. The other thing I want to point out here on this page is how you can tell the difference between a book that is available to borrow right now and a book that you'll have to join a waiting list for. So here on the ebook version, you can see the link says borrow, whereas the audiobook version, it says place hold. So if it says place hold, that means there's currently someone reading every single copy of that book, and you'll just have to join that waiting list and wait your turn. It is a very simple process. All you have to do is tap on place hold here. That's going to bring us to the confirmation page. And that confirmation page will give you a little sneak peek of approximately how long you'll have to wait for that title to reach you. And then you can confirm that you want to place a hold by tapping that big maroon button there that says place hold. This is when Libby gives us a few different options for what to do next. So I'm going to go ahead and say keep browsing, and that's just going to take us right back to the same search. So if I tap on keep browsing, you'll see I still have Beach Read here at the top of my list, and now that audiobook version is on my hold shelf. So that's how you place a hold. Let's go ahead and show you the borrowing process now. So I can tap on borrow right next to that jacket cover, but if you don't know what a book is about yet, you can tap directly on the jacket cover itself to view the details page. So that will give you all of that back jacket cover information. You can find out what the book is about, and then you have the option to borrow from this screen as well. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on borrow here. And this brings us to the borrowing confirmation page. Now, up at the top here, I want to point out that it's saying that we're borrowing this book for 21 days. And 21 days is the default lending period at your library in Libby. So you'll get that book for 21 days, and then the book will automatically return on its due date. You don't have to worry about late fees. However, you in Massachusetts are very lucky and get those 7 additional libraries that you have access to. And some of them might have their default set to 14 days with the option to change it to 21. So I just want to show you, in case you do decide to add those additional libraries, all you have to do is tap on that 14. It will say 14 instead of 21. Here it says 21. And then that's going to give you a menu where you can then select the 21-day lending period. So you'll have to do that for any library that has that 14-day default. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and tap on borrow now to confirm that I want to borrow this book. And now Libby is downloading my title for offline use. So Libby does this automatically when you're on Wi-Fi. And as soon as you get that check mark in that circle there, that means you no longer have to be on Wi-Fi or use cellular data. You could take this tablet or phone up into a plane on airplane mode or out to the beach without cell service, and the book will still allow you to open and enjoy it. So I'm going to go ahead and open this book now. And first, Libby's going to give me the option to read the book in Libby or send it to a Kindle device. So if you have a Kindle device at home that you prefer to read on, then you will not be able to download Libby on your Kindle. What you'll have to do is still download it on that smartphone or tablet or access it in the web browser at libbyapp.com. And then when you get this option to deliver it to your Kindle, that is what you're going to want to choose. So you'll tap on Kindle here. It will prompt you to sign into your Amazon account. And then once you sign into your Amazon account, there will be a big gold button, you can't miss it, that says Get Library Book. And Amazon will deliver your library book to the Kindle device that's attached to that Amazon account. So it is really, really simple. You won't get lost. It's not confusing in any way. Really simple process. I am going to talk about a few of the key reading features within the Libby app here. So I'm going to tap on Libby, and that's going to open our book directly on this device. So up at the top and the bottom of the screen, that's where you're going to see some menus here. This bottom menu will show you your reading progress. So we're currently on page 1, and we have 373 pages total to get through. To drop those menus out of the way, all you have to do is tap in the center of the screen. When you want them to reappear, same thing, you tap in the center of the screen. So I'm going to make those disappear for now. And then to page forward, all you have to do is tap or swipe on the right side of the screen. So I'm going to page forward here, and I'm going to actually go quick and get to some text there. One of my favorite things about Libby that I like to tell patrons about is how you can customize your reading appearance to meet your needs. So you're not stuck with the way that the publisher published this book. You can customize it so that it fits your reading experience the way that you would like. So I'm going to show you how to do that. First, we're going to tap in the center of the screen. Remember, that's going to make those menus reappear. And then up in the top right-hand corner here, you can see the A icon. That A stands for appearance. So that's what we're going to tap here. And this is going to bring up the appearance menu. So within the appearance menu, there are 3 different things that you can change. The first is your text scale. So this is the size of your font. We can use this slider here to increase or decrease the font size. Next, we have lighting. So currently Libby is in bright mode. That is Libby's default. You also have sepia and this dark mode available for you. That's my favorite. I'm a big night reader while I'm in bed. As we scroll down farther, that's where you're going to see book design. That's just our fancy way of saying font. So these are the different fonts that you can put Libby into. It's always going to start out in the publisher's default when you first start using Libby. That means if you pick this book up off the library shelf or a shelf at the store, this is the font that it would be in. But I always like to point out this open dyslexic font because it might help some users with dyslexia to read. Now, I am going to change these back to my default for the presentations that we give here. And that's because these are sticky settings. And what I mean by sticky settings is you only have to make these changes to your reading appearance one time per device. And then moving forward, Libby's going to deliver books to you with those customizations in place. So you're not going to have to continually come back and make it large print font or turn on that dark mode. Libby will just automatically deliver the books to you with those in place. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on hide here. This is just going to drop this menu out of the way. And now I'm going to leave the audiobook and we're going to go find an ebook, or we're going to leave the ebook and go find an audiobook rather. So I'm going to come up to the top left-hand corner here and tap on back to leave this book. Remember, if you're currently reading a book, you're not going to have those menus up. So just tap in the center of the screen. That's going to make those menus reappear, and then tap on back. And that's going to take us to the shelf. So I promised at the beginning I would be talking about every icon down in the navigation bar. This is where I'm going to come down and reorient everyone. So let's go down to the bottom of the screen here. First, I want to point out the Now Reading bar. This is Libby's way of giving you easy access to the very last book that you had open in the Libby app. So you can tap on this bar and jump right back into the last book that you had open. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this for now so that we can see the full navigation bar down at the bottom. So we started out the presentation to the left of the Libby menu. Remember that Libby menu is in the very center of the navigation bar. We started the presentation on the library card. That is where we browsed the library's collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. So we didn't know exactly what we were looking for. We just wanted to see everything that was available at the library. Then we tapped on the magnifying glass to search for something specific. That's where we could type in that title or keyword or magazine or series name. We're now to the right of the Libby menu. So on our bookshelf here, that icon directly to the right of the Libby icon there, your bookshelf is going to be where all of your loans and holds will be. And these are always going to be current. So you can think of it like you grabbed your library card to go and check out a book at the library, and then you drove home and you put that book on your bookshelf. So maybe a nice, easy way for you to remember it if you ever get lost. Again, this bookshelf is going to be where all of your loans and holds will be. So here are some filters at the top. You could specifically look at your loans or specifically look at your current holds. On the main page, it's going to show you a mixture. So you can see here is the book that I just borrowed with you earlier in the presentation. And then right below that, I also have an audiobook that I borrowed a few weeks ago. I'm going to go ahead and open up this audiobook here by tapping Open in Libby. So up at the top of your audiobook player, you'll have your reading progress. I'm 3% of the way through here with 24 minutes in and 14 hours rather left to go. That would be a short audiobook. Down at the bottom of the screen here is your player. So when you're ready to begin listening to your audiobook, all you have to do is tap on play. That is going to start the narration. There we go. So you can't hear her on your end so that you can hear me instead, but she's going on my end here. One thing that I always point out to new users here when in the audiobook experience is that Libby is designed to play in the background. That means you can start your audiobook and, put your screen to sleep on your device, or you can start your audiobook and minimize the app and be browsing other apps, and the audiobook is going to continue to play. So when you are done listening to the audiobook, you finished up for the day or for the time being, what you're going to do is tap on pause. That's going to stop that narrator, and then you can go about your day and you don't have to worry about losing your place in the audiobook. So just keep that in mind. That pause button acts as the stop button. You tap on pause and you are good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this audiobook now. I'm going to tap on back up in the top left-hand corner, just like we did in that ebook. And it's going to take us right back to our shelf here. And let's go back down to the bottom of the screen. We're going to reorient one more time here. So you can see I have a new now reading bar. This is, again, the last book that you had open in Libby. So you can see it's now changed to the audiobook that I just opened. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss that. Right next to your shelf where all of your current loans and holds live, that's where you have your activity timeline. So think of timeline as past activity. So this clock is going to be all of your history. I'm going to tap on the clock there. You can see here is the history that I have within the Libby app. It's all of my past loans, holds, renews, and returns. I just want to point out the difference one more time. Sometimes it trips people up. Bookshelf is where your current holds and loans are, and the clock is your activity timeline, so your history. Now we're going to finish off the presentation with the Libby menu. So this icon in the very center of the screen, you heard me earlier say you can think of it as your device settings. So right now, Libby is currently telling me with this red bubble here that I have one notification waiting for me inside the Libby menu. I'm going to go ahead and tap on the Libby icon there to open that menu up. And that one notification is right here at the top in this box. So I had a hold lapse. I didn't borrow it in time. Very uncharacteristic of me, to be honest. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this for now by tapping and swiping it to the left. And you can see a new box has taken its place that says manage notification. This is something I'm going to jump in and talk to you about, but I do want to point out that the first time you place a hold, Libby's going to prompt you to manage your notification. So you're not going to have to come and find it like the way I did just now. Libby's going to bring this menu to you, but I want to show you what that's going to look like when she does. So notifications are a way for you to be alerted about important events in the Libby app. There are 3 ways to be notified up here at the top that you can see. So you can ignore a notification. You can also set a menu badge. That's going to be an in-app notification. And that means you have to have the Libby app open to see it. You actually just saw me walk through what that looks like. So the first indication was the red bubble that was on Libby's head down in the navigation bar. And then once we tapped on the Libby menu, it appeared in the box up at the top of the Libby menu, and I swiped it out of the way. So again, that's an in-app notification. You have to have the Libby app open to see it. This blue notification option is a push notification. And that means it will appear on your device's screen regardless of what app you have open. So you could be looking at the Libby app, but you could also be browsing on Facebook or reading the news, or your device could be asleep somewhere in the house. And if a notification comes in, it will appear on your device's screen, just like a text message would. So a really good option, my recommended option, if you're not going to open Libby every day. So those are the 3 ways you can be notified. Right underneath that, we have all the things you can be notified about. I like to emphasize hold ready. And the reason I kind of harp on hold ready a little bit is because it is really important to know when it's your turn on the wait list. When it's your turn on the wait list, Libby is going to give you a 3-day limbo period where that book is in limbo and you are the only person who can take action on it. The 3 actions that you can take are to borrow the book, to cancel the hold, or to have it delivered later. What delivered later means is maybe you get busy and you don't have time to read that book that you've been waiting so long for. Instead of canceling your hold, what you can do is set a time period where you stay at the very top of the list and then people will skip over you in line until that time period ends, and then you'll be the next person in line to get the book. So that 3-day limbo period, more specifically 72 hours, Libby's going to give you that time period to take one of those 3 actions. If you don't take one of those 3 actions, then Libby's going to automatically deliver the title later one time as a courtesy. And then you'll have a second 3-day period to take action again. If the second 3-day period you don't take action again, that's when Libby's going to cancel your hold, which means you'll have to go and rejoin the wait list, which puts you at the bottom. So I know I harp on it, but very important. I hate missing my highly anticipated books. I don't want you to miss them either. So I'm going to come back up to the top here and tap on back. I just have 2 more quick things here. I know we're a little behind on time, but that's because we like to show you that reciprocal lending agreement. It's so nice. We're so jealous of you here in Ohio. You can see here are your library cards in the Libby menu. So if you add all those extra libraries, will have 8 library cards here. I only have 2, kind of pitiful, but I can tap into this library and search for a book. If it doesn't have the book I'm looking for, I can then jump into my other library and check there. As Joe showed you, you can add multiple library cards to Libby. I just want to add to what he said that you can also add additional library cards from the same library. So if you have multiple family members that want to share a device and don't want to fight over that loan limit, you can also add all of your library cards to the same Libby app as well. Last but not least, we have help and support. If you come down to get some help here, this red button, this is going to show you some common solutions to frequently asked questions. Very important here is down, you'll see copy to another device. This is especially important for you in Massachusetts because you have those additional library cards that you can add. So we recommend adding them all to one device and then using this copy to another device when you want to switch over to a second or third or fourth device. That way you're typing in one 8-digit code instead of 8, 13, 14, 15-digit library cards. Up at the top here, you can also search for keywords or questions. This is going to be where you can find help articles. One thing that I don't talk about in detail during the presentation is returning books early. And I do that because I like to keep this getting started session to the very basics. You have to know these things to use the Libby app to function day to day. But because titles return early on their due date, that's not something that I emphasize here. But I like to use it as a way to show you how easy it is to find more information about the Libby app. So I'm going to type in return here and tap on search. This is going to give us a few articles. I'm going to go ahead and tap on returning books. That's what I was looking for. And now Libby's showing me I can books return on their due date. She likes to be a little harpy on that. And then right below, you can see she also gives the instructions for how to return a book manually as well. If you can't find the answers you're looking for here, you can always come down to ask our support team. And if you tap on this, this is going to connect you with Overdrive technical support specialists. They are Libby experts and a really nice group of people who can answer any questions that you have and also help troubleshoot any deeper issues as well. So that wraps up our getting started demonstration. I'm going to let Joe take back over on the screen here to get into some next steps.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. And thank you all for your patience as we wrap up the getting started portion of our webinar this morning. A few reminders here. You can ask Marissa and I questions at any time, and you can even do that anonymously. We're going to wrap up getting started here with a few mini quiz questions before we roll into our deep dive session at 10:45. Now, I do recommend if you're, kind of at your max for info to absorb today, kind of use the quiz questions as your baseline. If you were getting them correct and you still feel confident in taking in more, roll in with us to the deep dive. But if not, I will give you a last call moment where you can hop off and just know you can review that recording tomorrow morning in an email from Zoom, or tomorrow morning is the earliest you can. You have a month to view it. So if you, I just wanted to provide one last reminder, of course, if you hop off early, as I mentioned, we do have a survey that will pop up in your browser. If you could fill that out and give us some feedback, we do greatly appreciate it. But I'm going to dive into our questions now. We're going to see how many we get through before we have to stop for time. They will appear on your screen. If you're on a computer, just answer. These questions are completely anonymous. We won't call anyone out, nor can we see who answered what. We just want a little bit of a baseline to see how that first session went and give you a few final reminders. So question number 1, we're going to start in the navigation bar. What do you tap to browse your library's collection? The magnifying glass, the library card, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock? There is, of course, also an unsure option. So this is when you want to browse your library's collection. You're not looking for anything specific. I'm going to close this one in 3, 2, 1. All right, great work, everyone. 100% correct on that one. When you want to browse your library's collection, you grab your library card and go to the library. This is where you have that browsing experience, whether you are using the guides your library has curated for you, or looking through those different curated lists of recommended titles, just like walking around the physical library. If you're looking for something specific, tap on the magnifying glass and you can type in a title, an author, a series name, anything like that. Another great way to find what you're looking for. So library card, a little more general, and magnifying glass, more specific. I'm gonna have us do at least question number 2 here. I know we're at 10:45, but I want you to get a little bit more out of it. We might go a little over. We're going to stick in the navigation bar. What do you tap to find your loans and holds? The magnifying glass, the library card, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock. So we need to get our shelf to find our loans and holds. I'm going to close this in 3, 2, 1. Great work, 100% for those of you who voted. So to get to your shelf, you need to tap on the stack of books icon. This will open up your shelf where you can see your loans and your holds, along with some other features we'll talk about in the deep dive. Libby will also break down that main shelf page with some recommendations of where you left off, or the list of things you have borrowed, or even available holds. I'm going to do one final question so we can cover this one as well, and then we'll roll into our deep dive. So let's talk about customizing ebook appearances. What are the 3 ways you can customize the way your ebook looks? The text scale, the lighting, the book design, or the language? So there are 3 correct answers, whether it's the size of the font, the background color of the book, the font the book is in, or the language the book is written in. I'm going to close this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so great work, everyone. All correct here. There are 3 things you can adjust in an ebook. To do that, we'll tap in the center of our screen and open the appearance menu by tapping on that A icon. The first thing we can change is the text scale, or the size of the font. So every book could be a large print book. Next, we want to look at lighting, or that background color. So dark mode is nice and easy on the eyes. Bright mode is great for reading during the day. And then we have book design, or our fancy way of saying font. Here we're highlighting our open dyslexic font, but there are a few preset fonts, as well as a custom option so you can build your own unique experience. Awesome work, everyone. I don't want to keep us too far behind, so I am going to push us forward here. Sorry, I have a few slides to click through. There we go. So thank you all for joining us. That wraps up the getting started portion of this morning. This is kind of that last call if you want to hop off before heading into the Libby deep dive session. Of course, as a final reminder, you will receive a recording tomorrow morning in an email from Zoom. So you can review that recording for up to 30 days following the session or download to keep it permanently. Additionally, when you leave the meeting, a survey will appear in your browser. If you can take a moment to fill that out, we would greatly appreciate it so we can make updates to this presentation going forward. Now, with all of that said, welcome to our Libby tips and tricks session. If you're just joining us, my name is Joe and I'm here with my teammate Marissa, and we're both digital book specialists at Overdrive. This session is where we get to take a deeper dive into our favorite tips, tricks, and features of the library reading app, Libby. Before we go too far in, I have a few housekeeping items. Sorry to those of you who already heard these. We do have people who will join us just for this session, so I'm going to quick go over those. We are recording our session this morning, and you'll all receive an email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes the recording of this session. You have 30 days to view that recording before it expires, or if you want to keep it forever, you can click the download button on the screen to keep it permanently. Since you have access to that recording, we do recommend you watch as we go through the demo and wait to try Libby on your own until after we wrap up this session so you don't miss anything. You can ask Marissa and I questions at any point throughout the entire webinar using the Q&A feature in your Zoom meeting controls. Tap the button to open the box, type out your question, and keep an eye for the answer in the Answered tab. It's the only way to reach us, and these questions will be included in the recording as well. You will be able to ask questions anonymously if that makes you more comfortable. I like to point out this session is a little different than our Getting Started session if you're sticking from that. In this session, I'm more likely to mark some questions to be answered live. After we wrap up our tips and tricks here, we like to save some questions for live demo at the end. So we should have about 10 minutes at the end of this session where we'll answer questions live on screen and show off that step-by-step process. As mentioned in our earlier session, sometimes when we connect our iPad, Zoom cuts off part of the screen, either the top or the bottom. I have some instructions here on how to fix that. So if you have any issues seeing your screen, I'll chat that out shortly, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, so we have 4 tips and tricks we want to cover before we go into that open Q&A section. So the 4 tricks we'll be looking at are, the first one is all about magazines, so the different ways to read and enjoy them. Then we'll look at filtering and refining lists to help you find books you like faster. Then we'll talk about tagging titles, and then we'll wrap up with making notes and highlights. So I'm going to give Marissa a minute here to connect her iPad. If you're just joining us, she is using an iPad with a demo library from Overdrive, so you will see a different logo on her screen, but the functionality is exactly the same regardless of the device you're on. And once again, you can ask us questions at any point. We appreciate you joining us this morning, and we're happy to be here.
Zoom's just taking a second to connect my device here. There we go. Thank you, Joe. I'm all set. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. First, I just want to quickly remind everyone that sometimes that Zoom ratio gets all wonky. If you can't see the 5 icons down at the bottom of the screen in my navigation bar, you can follow the directions that Joe is going to chat out to correct that issue there. We're going to dive right in. We have lots of great tips for you today. The first tip is going to be reading magazines and navigating in that magazine experience. So I'm currently on my shelf. I already have a magazine downloaded here on my Libby app, just because since magazines are picture heavy, they can take a minute to download. I like to skip that step there. And I'm going to just open up the magazine that I have downloaded in the Libby app. So up at the top and bottom of the screen, you're going to see some menus. Now, there are 4 different ways that you can navigate throughout the magazine experience here in Libby. And you are going to find what works best for you. Joe and I, we talk to a lot of patrons all over the United States, and we've seen it all. We've seen everyone have a different preference. So I like to show you everything so that you can choose what works best for you. 2 of the ways that you can navigate throughout a magazine are in this bottom menu here. The first is if you have perfect vision. So these thumbnails down at the bottom, you can use these to jump to a specific page and navigate directly to that page. The second is right above that, you'll see this black bar across the screen. You might recognize this if you stayed from getting started, because this also appears in the ebook and audiobook experience as well. And it's always segmented into 3 sections here. This middle section is going to be your table of contents. So Libby's table of contents here, I'm going to go ahead and tap on that middle bar, and you'll see that the chapter list has appeared. So this will be chapters if you're in an ebook or an audiobook. This is going to be your articles in a magazine. So we could go ahead and choose any of these articles in the list to jump to that specific article. So that's the second way you can navigate throughout the magazine. I'm going to go ahead and tap on hide here and drop that out of the way. And then I'm going to drop those menus out of the way as well, just tapping in the center of the screen. So the third way to navigate throughout a magazine is just by tapping or swiping on the right side of the screen. This is if you like to read all the ads, you like to read the entire magazine from start to finish. That's my mom's way. She doesn't care about reading all those ads, unlike me, who I'm like, Mom, I can't handle that. I just want to read the articles. So if you are someone who likes to read from start to finish, just tapping or swiping on the right side of the screen, that's going to be what works for you. If you like to read specific articles, here is the third way to do that. Just navigate to the masthead. That's what magazines call their table of contents. You'll see here, it gives us all those articles on the cover and the feature articles. And these are all links. So you can click any of these or tap any of these if you're on a tablet or phone to jump to that article. That's my favorite way. That's my preferred way, but you are going to figure out what works best for you and enjoy those magazines. Now let's talk about the 2 ways that you can read a magazine article. So the first is going to require you to tap on the center of the screen to make those menus reappear. And then up at the top, you'll see that zoom button. So if you tap on zoom, we talked about this in our getting started session. I just got a push notification letting me know that I have an important event happening in Libby. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and tap on that Zoom button. And let's say I want to read about blood sugar here. I'm going to use my fingers to pinch in and out on the screen. So I'm first going to just scroll up a little and then pinch out my fingers. That's zooming into that blood sugar blurb. And then when I'm done, I can pinch back out, move across the screen and read a different part. Now, when you're done with this page, just pinch all the way in. You'll see Libby brings those menus back up. You just have to tap on the center of the screen to drop those back out of the way. So I have seen people love that option. I personally find it a little cumbersome to be constantly pinching my fingers in and out of the screen. So what I like is this read the menu button down here at the bottom of the screen. If you tap on this, this is going to bring up the article in a really nice, clean menu where all you have to do is scroll down, and Libby will carry over your reading appearance settings from your ebook experience into the magazine. So remember, if you customize to a larger font or a darker screen, Libby's going to carry that over here into this read the article option so that you have those customizations in place and it's nice and easy and simple for you. So those are the two ways that you can read articles within the magazine experience. When you want to drop this menu out of the way, just tap right above. That'll drop it right out of the way. And then you can leave your magazine just like we would in an ebook. So tap on the center of the screen and then back up in the left-hand corner there. So that took us back to our shelf here. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on to tip number 2. This is going to be customizing your browsing experience. So remember, we browse with our library card. I'm going to go down to the navigation bar and tap on that library card there. And again, we're going to talk about customizing your browsing experience and then searching for filtering and refining lists to find the books that you like faster. There we go, tongue twister here. So on the library card tab, the first thing I want to do is show you how to set app-wide preferences. So I'm going to scroll down on this page just below the catalog guides. Remember, your catalog guides are going to be a little bit different than mine. You have that magazine catalog guide, but what everyone is going to have, regardless of what library you're at, is preferences. This preferences button will allow you to set app-wide preferences where Libby filters out content that you are not interested in. So these preferences are saved and applied to all lists, regardless of if you shut down your phone or tablet and come back a week or a month from now. Libby's going to continue to remember those preferences and filter that content out of your searches. So some examples of why you might set a preference. My favorite way is language. So despite my French teacher's best efforts, I thought maybe I was going to sneeze, but I'm not. So, and I wanted to make sure I muted before I did it right in your ear. All right. So, I cannot read in anything other than English, despite my French teacher's best efforts. So I only want to see English content show up in my searches. If it's in any other language, I'm not going to be able to read it. So I'm going to select English here. And that way, Libby is going to always filter out any titles that are written in anything other than English. Some other examples, the most popular that we see is format. If you are someone who specifically likes a format, so you specifically like audiobooks, you're not interested in ebooks or magazines, or the other way around, you specifically want ebooks, you're not interested in audiobooks, then you can change your format to whatever format that you prefer, and that way Libby's filtering out the rest. The last one that's really popular is audience. This is really big for anyone who has young kids who might have their own tablet and you only want to show them kid-appropriate content. You can set an audience filter to juvenile so that it's filtering out that adult and young adult content for them. So once you set your preference, you just tap on Apply Preference. That is important. You might have to scroll down just a tiny bit to see that button. So make sure you're tapping Apply Preference. Libby will refresh the page here. And if you scroll down and look at your preferences, if you have a preference set, you'll see the number here. So I have one preference set. It's Libby's way of saying, hey, you're currently filtering some content out of your searches. So that is the first part of this tip, is setting an app-wide filter. I'm going to come back to the top here and we're going to get into the second part of how to filter and refine searches so that you can find the books that you like faster. So for this part of the tip, I like to give a little prompt so that we can kind of keep track of how Libby is filtering this down. So let's pretend my mom and I are about to go on a road trip. We're going to go to Dollywood and we need an audiobook for the road trip so that we can listen to it. So I'm going to specifically look for a title in the audiobook format. I want it to be available now because our road trip is tomorrow. I don't want to join any waiting lists or place any books on hold. I want that title to be a new release, not anything older. And then I'm going to let my mom choose the genre, and she is pretty big into historical fiction mystery titles. So that is going to be the subject or genre that we're going to look for. So again, audiobook available now, new release, historical mystery. So let's get started. I said in the beginning of my getting started session, I love these filters. They are where I start the majority of my browsing. So I'm going to start here. Available now was one of our criteria. I'm going to go ahead and tap on available now and jump into a list where I know I'm not going to have to place a hold. So up at the top, you can see I'm looking at available titles. They're in English. Remember, I set that app-wide preference, so Libby's always filtering out any of those non-English titles. Down here, we can see this list has 37,000 books, 21,000 audiobooks, and 2,400 magazines. I'm specifically looking for an audiobook, so I'm going to tap on audiobooks here, and that's going to filter out those other two formats. So now we've narrowed it down to 21,000 books. And we have two of our criteria met. We're looking at available audiobooks. So now I need to add those subjects and then sort this list to see the new books at the top. So I'm going to come over to Refine. That's on the right side of the screen here. And I'm going to tap on that. Now, as this menu pops up, you're going to say, wait, preferences had the same exact categories there. What's the deal here? So preferences are sticky and will continue to filter your lists, even if you shut that device down and come back later until you change them again. Refining is temporary and for the search that you're making at this moment. So that is the difference there. That's why they have the same categories, but one is sticky and one is temporary. So let's come down to subjects here. I'm going to tap on subject and choose my mystery category here. So you'll see that number dropped from 21,000 to 2,800. We're looking at mystery titles currently. But my mom doesn't just like mystery titles. She likes them to be also historical fiction titles. So I'm going to come back to subject and choose additional subjects here. So I'm going to select historical fiction. That's going to drop that number down to 205. I like to show you this because you're not just limited to one broad subject. You can choose additional subjects, and Libby's going to combine those subjects so that you can find the niche subjects that you're looking for. I have been able to add about 4 filters before Libby says you're looking for something too specific that doesn't exist. So about 4, and then after that, Libby's not going to give you very many results. Let's come back to refine. I have one more thing that I need to do, which is sort this list to show the new releases at the top. So I'm going to come down to sort by. If you're on a smaller device, you might have to scroll a little bit to see this button here. I'm going to, my mouse, tap on sort by and then select release date. So I'm currently looking at popularity, but I want release date instead. That's going to show those newest titles up at the top, and we are good to go. So all of our criteria is met now. We have all 4 things in place, and I went from 60,000 titles to 205 titles. So instead of looking for a book all day, might take me an hour or 2 instead. So that is tip number 2, filtering and refining your lists so that you can find the books that you like faster. I'm going to stay on this screen here for tip number 3, which is tagging titles. Personally, my favorite tip. Tagging titles is a great way to organize books in Libby. So you can create wish lists or your favorite book lists or book to buy lists. Your options are endless. So this is one of the main differences between the Overdrive app and the Libby app. Overdrive gives you a history and a wish list. You're limited to those two lists. Libby has a tagging system that is much more robust. You can create as many tags as you'd like, and you can name them whatever you'd like. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that. As I scroll through this search here, since I'm looking for that book for my mom and I come across a book that I might want to save for later, what I'm going to do is tap on tag. So this doesn't look like something I want to listen to with my mom in the car, but I do want to save it for later. So I'm going to tap on tag. This is going to bring up our tag menu here. I can create a new tag for this book, or I can add it to a tag that already exists. So regular tags don't have any special abilities. They're just tags that you create to organize your books in Libby. So I have a wish list or a to be read list that I created. And then I also created a cooking tab to keep track of some recipe books that I like. Smart tags, on the other hand, do have special abilities. So the first smart tag that you see here is a little red receipt, just like if you were to go to check out a book and the library handed you a receipt at the end. This is going to be a borrowed smart tag. So this will apply to any books that you borrow in Libby and keep them all in a single list for you. So that's what that smart tag does. You don't have to do anything other than borrow a book and it will attach to that. The tag right below it is a notify me tag. And this is specific to magazines right now. So the very first time you borrow a magazine, Libby's going to prompt you to create this tag. And you can name it whatever you want. For simplicity's sake, I named mine magazines. And what this will do is any magazine that you add to your notify me tag, Libby will send you a notification or an alert for every time a new issue is added to your library's digital collection. So you're not going to have to keep going and searching for it. Libby's going to bring that notification to you and let you know that a new magazine issue is available. So again, you'll be prompted the first time you borrow a magazine, and then thereafter you can add any magazine to it. So smart tags, special abilities, regular tags, just organization. Let's go ahead and create a new tag for this book that I was tagging. So I'm going to tap on new tag. One type of tag I create a lot is just genre. I have to be in a certain mood to read specific genres. So I will create genre tags. So that way, when I'm in the mood for a mystery title, I can just hop in and find the book that I've tagged in that tag. So I'm going to tap on done after I name it. And you can see that tag shows up right next to the jacket cover. You can see I have a couple tags here on this page. So what I really love about tags is they show up in your searches. I'm looking for that book for my mom and I, that audiobook. As I scroll down this list, I can see I've added this to my wish list. I'd probably just go ahead and borrow that since I know I've had interest in the past. I can also see that I've already read Devil in the Dark Water. I don't have to go ahead and look and see what it's about. I can just skip over it in this list and not waste my time. So some good perks there. So that is how you can create tags. I'm going to jump over to the shelf now so that you can see where those tags live and then how we could print those out or send them out in a text message or email. So I'm going to come down to the shelf and tap on that icon there. Up at the top next to your filters for loans and holds, that's where you'll start to see your tags. And you can tap on more here to see a full list. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my wish list here. So I'm going to tap on to be read. And you can see that list has now shown up on my screen. Just a little mini tip inside this larger tip here. Anytime you see this library card icon, it might look like a calendar instead if it's currently on hold. But if you tap on that little icon, this will allow you to place a hold or borrow the book directly from the screen without having to view its details page. But more importantly, especially for you in Massachusetts, if you have multiple libraries attached to Libby, then this will show you how many copies are available at each library card that you have attached to the Libby app. So really good for seeing which library has shorter holds lists or books available in general. So I always like to sneak that in. I know it's like technically a fifth tip, but I'm going to tap right above the menu there to drop it out of the way. And what I really came here to show you is this actions button. So if you tap on actions up in this corner, this is going to allow you to rename the tag or delete it or export it. And exporting is going to be what you want to choose if you want to email this out, send it in a text message, or print it out. You have 3 options here. These are all great options. I've seen people prefer any of them. I like table. I think it's nice and neat. That's what I'm going to select. And then once you're in your data export page, up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see that share button. This is a universal share icon. So every share button in any app is going to look like that. I'm going to go ahead and tap on the share button. And this is where we can send this out in a text message, a email, or we can come down. Again, if you have a small screen, you might have to scroll and you can print this out as well. So some good options there if you want to take your tags with you on the go. I'm going to go ahead and tap on done. That wraps up our tagging tip. And we're going to move on to our final tip of the day, which is making notes and highlights. So this is good for anyone who's in book clubs, anyone who might be reading for school. Joe and I, we just like to annotate our books for fun. So let's go ahead and open up this book in Libby. And then I'm going to page forward until I get to a good chunk of text here. So give me 1 second. All right. So when you come across a passage that you want to remember and reference later, what you're going to do is start at the very beginning of that passage. I'm going to start on perfect. I'm moving my mouse just slightly to the left so that you can see what happens when I put my finger on the screen. But what I'm going to do is tap and hold my finger on the word perfect. Now, if you just quickly tap and lift your finger up off the screen, it's going to turn the page. So make sure as soon as your finger makes contact, it's staying on the screen. And then that's when you can start scrolling over until, let's go all the way to books, the full passage is highlighted. Then just lift your finger up off the screen, and that's when you're going to get your highlight menu. So let's choose a color to stay organized here. And then once you choose what color you want to highlight that in, you can tap on the highlight itself to make your note. So I've typed in full paragraphs here for book club. I'm just going to say this is a note for my demonstration here, and then tap on save. And now I'm just going to page forward a couple pages. And let's say I now want to reference that back. So what I'm going to do is tap on the center of the screen. That's going to make those menus reappear. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see that multiple bookmark icon. That is what we're going to tap on to find our notes and highlights. So I've only made one in this book, but I'm going to go ahead and tap on that link, and it's going to drag me right on back to the highlight. All you have to do to see the note is tap on your highlight, and that note will drop down. So that's how you can reference it if you are currently inside the book. Now, I know that sometimes you'll want to find your notes and highlights even after the book has returned to the library. And in some cases, that book will be on hold, so you're not going to be able to borrow it again. But don't worry, we have a solution for you. So I'm going to bring up the menus and then leave this ebook here by tapping back up in the top corner. So when you want to find your notes and highlights for a book that you have borrowed in the past, what you're going to want to look for is the details page. And if you remember, you can find the details page by tapping on the jacket cover when you're searching or browsing for the book. So you could go to the magnifying glass and search for the book. You could also find the jacket cover in your activity timeline down here at the bottom. That might take you a while. That thing can get long. I like to come up to the tag. So remember that borrowed smart tag. Everyone's going to have it. It's going to keep track of all the books that you've borrowed in the past. I'm going to go ahead and find the book in this list here. So here it is, the guest list. I'm going to go ahead and tap on the jacket cover from this tag to go to its details page. When you have borrowed a book in the past, your details page will always have a reading journey. It starts as soon as you borrow the book, and then it captures all of the information and actions that you've taken with that book while it's in your possession. I'm going to go ahead and tap on that. You'll recognize up at the top that actions button. This is how we printed out our tags. Same thing with notes and highlights. All you have to do is export your reading data. It will take you to that export page, and you could send this in an email or print it out. So you have that option for you. If you don't want to do that, you can still access your highlights. If you scroll down on this page, again, this is the reading journey, and you'll see the timeline for this title. Your highlights will appear in the timeline, and you just have to tap on the highlight to view what the passage was that you highlighted, and then the note that was added as well. So those are your options for finding those highlights after you return the book. And that wraps up tip number 4 and our final tip of the day, making notes and highlights. I'm going to let Joe take back over on this. You're not going to take over the screen. I'm going to leave the screen up. You're going to take back over talking. There we go.
Thanks, Marissa. We both say so many words in this short amount of time. So every once in a while, we've got to stumble or 10. Thank you all for joining us. That wraps up the live demo of our 4 tips and tricks. From here, we have about 10 minutes left in which we are open to questions, so feel free to send those through. If there are features or things you would like to see us demonstrate live on the screen, we're more than happy to do that. That's why Marissa's still connected, and we'll walk you through those answers or those demo steps as well. While you're doing that, we do have a few fun tips we like to pull out and show off. And I just wanted to emphasize before we do that, one thing that Marissa pointed out during the tags tip, that library card icon. That is my favorite tip that we sneak in there, especially when we're in Massachusetts. That button appears on so many different screens. So you would see that in search results, in different lists. So take advantage of that if you want to search across your multiple libraries at once. Like if we were to open up your next great read list, it's there. If you tap on it, it does the same thing where all of your available libraries will pop up. So it's a great example because we can see only one of our 2 demo libraries actually has this title. So just kind of keep in mind if you want to add all 8 of those Massachusetts cards and, kind of search across multiple libraries. Easier. The next thing I wanted to kind of show off is we have 2 smaller customizations within the Libby menu. So we're going to tap on that Libby menu icon. The first one, we believe diversity and inclusion are important. So if you would like, you can tap on Libby's face and change her skin tone. We've got a few skin tone options available, or her default is kind of more of that typical emoji shade. The other customization you can make is for your library card colors. Under your library, and then tapping See Library Cards, will pull up your different list of cards. And if you tap on actions, you can then choose change library colors, and this will allow you to create custom color cards for yourself to help you keep organized. I use them mainly to keep organized. So if you're a family sharing one device with multiple cards from the same library, maybe you and your partner pick different colors for your cards so you're never borrowing their card. Or in your situation, since you have 8 cards, some of them may have similar colors. Libraries are very fond of the blue tones that our demo card here is in. So you may actually have some cards already that look like that. And if you want to kind of keep yourself organized and go, oh, I'm at this library now, another easy way to do it. Now, Michelle asks, is there a way to search all the libraries at once? Kind of the tip we were just going through, tapping on that card icon, is currently the only way to do that in Libby. So if you search for a title and it appears, like if we were to, Marissa, do you mind using the magnifying glass actually for a second? Just search for like Untamed or a random title. You're still going to have this same results page and that card will still be there. Currently, the feature to search all libraries at once is something they're working on for Libby. It is on the roadmap, but this was the quick workaround because different library permissions and access can make that a little tricky. So this is the convenient solution right now, but that is on the roadmap. Now, that's a great segue. If you have a feature you'd like to see in the Libby app, you can submit feedback or suggestions directly in Libby by tapping on the Libby menu, going down to Get Some Help, and then under the Common Solutions section, there should be a suggestion box. There we go. Here's an idea for a feature, suggestion box, and you can type out that idea. So if you want to be able to search across all libraries at once from the magnifying glass, type that in. We love that feature. And this goes directly to our app developers. So as those kind of requests come in and more of them kind of pile up for the same feature, the more priority those items tend to get. So if you think Libby's missing something, or if you'd like to see something work a little differently, we'd love to hear it. It's a great place to do that.
Also, Michelle, one other thing that you probably don't know, but is nice to know, a question you asked earlier about estimated wait times for holds. When it comes to the deliver later feature, where you are choosing a time period to stay at the top of the wait list, those stack. So let's say Sharon delivers later for 14 days, and then 7 days later, Tim delivers later for 7 days. It's going to stack Sharon above Tim. So even though his shorter wait, he had a shorter wait time and he's technically at the top of the list, he's still below Sharon because she took priority. So if you ever get someone who's like, I delivered later and it's been weeks and weeks and weeks, it might have been because 4 people were stacked above them and then they're going to get it after.
Awesome. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. If you're typing a question, please feel free to finish that. But of course, if there's no other questions coming through, we will end a little early and give you some time back to your morning. But while we wait to wrap things up, just wanted to say one more time, thank you so much for joining us today. We do really appreciate your time and your questions and your participation. Marissa and I always have fun doing these sessions, and it's a great way to be able to connect, but also to share our love of reading. As a reminder, you will receive an email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes the recording of our entire webinar. You are welcome to share that with family and friends, anyone who you think would benefit from meeting Libby. And of course, I want to just mention it does expire after 30 days, but if you'd like to keep that video forever, there is a button that says download. You can't miss it. Tap download and it will save to your computer and it is yours forever. Just kind of keep that in mind. So you'll get that email tomorrow and you have 30 days to either watch it until you're done or download and keep forever. Additionally, when I end the meeting, a survey will pop up in your browser. If you could take a minute and fill that out for us, we appreciate that feedback on this presentation. It'd be super helpful so we know where we can grow and change going forward. Doesn't look like we have any other questions coming through. So with that in mind, thank you all so much for your time this morning and happy reading.
Happy reading.